Hi, I'm Janice Edwards. Coming up on Signature Silicon Valley, an interview with Senior Advisor to President Obama, Valerie Jarrett. That's next. Join us.
This segment is sponsored by Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Silicon Valley Community Foundation advances innovative philanthropic solutions to challenging problems. As the largest community foundation in the world, we engage donors and corporations from Silicon Valley, across the country, and around the globe to make our region and world better for all. Possibilities start here. Learn more at siliconvalleycf.org.
I'm Janice Edwards. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited because we're on location at the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco, where Senior Advisor to President Obama, Valerie Jarrett, is going to speak in just a few moments. In addition to being Senior Advisor, she's overseer of the Offices of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs and Chair of the White House Council on Women and Girls, and of course known as First Friend also. Well, we are so honored to have you here. Welcome back to the Bay Area.
Thank you, Janice. It's always a pleasure to be back home.
Yes. And it does feel like home.
Yes, very familiar.
Yes.
I knew San Francisco very well. I still can find my way around, even though there's a lot of construction going on.
Oh, I know.
It's pretty vibrant right now.
Yes. What inspired you to choose Stanford and spend time in the Bay Area when you did that?
That's such an interesting question. I decided I wanted to go to Stanford my freshman year of high school. I was looking for a warm climate, an intellectually stimulating environment, an ability to go there and just learn a whole range of different issues that I cared a lot about, and it was my first and only choice.
Wow. And so the experience there, how did that shape the rest of your life in India?
I think it did in a lot of different ways. It opened my eyes to infinite possibilities. I met people from not just all over the country, but all over the world. It really, I think, developed in me this kind of lifelong passion for learning and excellence, and I will have a very special place in my heart forever for Stanford. Other than my last 7.5 years, best 4 years of my life.
Oh, okay. Well, and the last 7.5 years have been incredible. Those so many years ago when you met Michelle Obama and encouraged her to apply for that position. Yes. Could you have imagined this, or what did you think?
Of course,
Yes.
I knew this is where they would end up. Of course,
right? Of course. Well, everyone who meets them is so impressed.
I was impressed, yes. And well, you've known them for a long time as well. So I thought they were really kind of mature beyond their years, commitment to public service, a desire to really shape their life together. I remember having dinner with them that very first time, and how much in love they were, and how they were just trying to. They were really struggling and challenging each other to what's the best way that we can serve and give back and improve our community. And this turned out to be a pretty darn good way, don't you think?
It has been incredible. And along with all of the amazing achievements and historical moments, there also have been the challenges.
Sure.
When you look at this right now, especially recently, there was the gun control vote, there's a Supreme Court gridlock or delay. What are your thoughts about what will be the lasting legacy of this administration?
Well, I think we've accomplished so much. I mean, just think about it. When the president took office, we were losing 750,000 jobs a month. Our banks were on the verge of collapse. Our automobile industry was literally in bankruptcy. The world economy was crumbling, as was ours, and the unemployment rate skyrocketed up to 10%. Now it's down to under 5%. The health and vibrancy of our country is clear. It doesn't mean we still don't have progress to make in the economy, but we've come so far. Now, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, everyone in America can have health insurance, and you don't have to worry about going broke or going without if you don't have insurance. No one can be discriminated against for pre-existing conditions. Young people can stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. Women have access to preventive care and contraception without any copay. Just an important building block to keep our country safe. So that's a part of the president's legacy as well. So we have much to be proud of, reducing our dependence on foreign oil, developing a national climate change agreement with hundreds of countries all committed to working with us to ensure that we leave our planet in better shape than we found it. So a lot is going well, but I will say to you, the toxicity which we see in Washington, in Congress, is just unconscionable. And it's been that way since day one, but it's just consistently, my observation is people who put their short-term political interests ahead of what's good for our country. And that's very frustrating. And you mentioned, right now we have members of the House just sitting in on the floor of the House because they have been unable to get their colleagues in the Republican side of the House to call a vote. Yes. Why wouldn't you just call an up or down vote? What could you possibly be afraid of? And so this kind of obstructionism that we've seen since day one has had a deleterious impact on our country. And that has been, I suppose, the biggest disappointment that we've had.
Yes, and given that disappointment, are you concerned about what might be reversed in the years to come?
Well, we've made so much progress. It would be a shame to see our country go backwards. Part of what keeps the United States the beacon of hope for the entire world is that we are the land of innovation and opportunity, and we consistently move forward. Just last year, the president gave this remarkable speech down in Selma on the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And just thinking about the people who made such sacrifices in order for us to have the right to vote, yet today we're seeing all over the country states that are changing their voting laws to make it harder for people to vote. What other country do we know of in the developed world that passes laws to make it more challenging for people to vote? So yes, things can slip backward, and it's very important that we continue to keep our eye focused on that true north, and that's trying to ensure every American gets a fair chance and ensure that we keep our land safe, do everything we can to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. On a personal note, as you've seen the toxicity, what have your thoughts been in terms of for your friends? You've said that they're like siblings to you in that way, the impact on them and their girls.
Well, to start with, they're strong and they're grounded and they have each other. It's a very strong bond of support that they provide to each other. I think that they, coupled with the First Lady's mom, who formed the nuclear family in the White House, has really given the girls a chance for as much normalcy as possible. And they've grown up into these remarkable young women, and everyone's so proud of them. So I think that groundedness and centeredness and appreciation for this just awesome responsibility of being in the White House is something that makes me very proud of them. And so they don't spend a lot of time focusing on themselves. They really don't. I think the president has a really tough skin. He wouldn't have gotten into this line of work if he didn't. And he keeps centered by reminding himself this isn't about him. Mm-hmm. This is about the American people. And I think that being a close observer of him over these 7.5 years, he has this ability to absorb a lot of pain. And that's part of leadership, is that you're going to have people coming at you. This is a rich and diverse country with lots of opinions, and everybody shares those opinions in a very open and candid way, and that's part of a healthy democracy. But there is also a kind of a toxicity which isn't good, and our country is at its best when it is inclusive, when everyone is pulling together, when we're trying to figure out how we can ensure every child, not just our child, does well. And so anytime you see criticism about the president, I think just know that he's not thinking about that. He's thinking about what more can I do to be the president of all the people of America and make our country as great as it can possibly be. And if you have to absorb a little bit of pain in the process of that incredible privilege of serving as the president, then he's willing to do that.
Yes, I think this has really shown people a new view of politics. There have always been opinions about it, but certainly what we've seen here. What have you learned personally about leadership, and how have you changed over these 7.5 years?
Well, I think the First Lady made an observation about the president that I think applies to most people at this age, and that is this environment doesn't really change who you are, it reveals who you are. Mm-hmm. And so it's been challenging for me to see. I mean, I try to stay away from my Twitter feed. It's pretty brutal.
Oh,
and you see things that are said about yourself that you know are absolutely not true, and you just kind of wonder, why are people working themselves up to be so angry when they have so much misinformation? And there is accurate information out there, but people tend to focus and repeat the stuff that's just not true. And so I have had to develop a tough skin too, but the president's a great role model for that. And so I think that what I have learned to do is to take that long view, to not let myself get worked up by the 24-hour news cycle, but to really remind myself about just the goodness of the American people. And when I get outside of Washington and I travel around this great country and I meet just ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, it's replenishing for me. And I find that to seek out that replenishment is one of the things that I've learned I have to do. Washington can wear you down if you let it.
Yes.
And you have to be very deliberate in surrounding yourselves with people who are good and decent and kind. And there are so many of them outside of Washington that I like to spend a lot of time. And I don't want to be too hard on Washington, because I've also met some amazing people there, public servants who are truly trying to do right by the country, many people who could leave government and go and command much higher salaries in the private sector, yet they're committed to public service. And so I don't want to paint the brush over the entire Washington or the federal government. It's just a few Republicans in Congress that get on my last nerve.
I know, and if we had time, you could name them all, but we won't do that because then we'd have to give them time to speak about that. But speaking of people in other parts, you came out for the Bay Area Women's Summit, as well as the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. So tell me that
that was yesterday.
That was yesterday, and you were with Mayors Libby Schaaf and Mayor Ed Lee, among others.
Yes.
I know they learned a lot from you, but what, if anything, did you learn from those there?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed by both of them, and I think that they have challenges in their respective cities, and what I respect about them is their willingness to address them head on. And I had seen Libby Schaaf on television a few days ago speaking about how the challenges that she has with her police department, but in an open and passionate way, and I complimented her for that. And the fact that she really feels like she's on the road to improvement now, because you can't pretend that problems don't exist. You really have to look at them head on. And I think both mayors have the ability to do that. And I'm always, I started my career in government and local government in Chicago, working for the city of Chicago. So to be around two mayors is really also like going back home. And the kinds of issues that they talk about are the ones that the president focuses on. What can we do to make sure that our citizens have jobs and opportunity? How do we rebuild our infrastructure, improve our schools, make sure that our public transit system is working? I mean, these are what people really care about, who are outside of the bubble of Washington. So I found my conversation with them refreshing, and I really enjoyed my interview with Chris Jansing. She did a great job of talking about the summit that we had last week in Washington, the United States of Women.
Yes, that was incredible.
So it was perfect to have that in Washington and then come here and see 1,200 people also really focusing on the issues that are so important to women and girls right here in the Bay Area.
I was thinking as I looked at some of the feeds from that summit too, that the world for girls has changed. Certainly, you have a daughter.
I do.
And when you think about her life and for a granddaughter, then what will you be proudest of in terms of what you've done to change the world in terms of perception, vision, sense of capacity that girls now have?
Well, that's a tough question, because we have such a great team, and we really focus as a team in the White House and what we can do to ensure every young child has an equal opportunity. And my special focus is, of course, on girls. And I think about the fact that you can't be what you can't see. And so I like the fact that young girls around the country can see a woman in the White House in a senior position who came on day one and hopefully stays until the very end and has a chance to be an advisor to the President of the United States. Yes, I'm his friend, but he hired me because he thought that I had the skill set necessary to be his advisor. And I think that's an important thing for young girls to see, to aspire to public service at the highest level. I think one of the areas where we've seen transformative change is this whole basket of issues we call working family issues. Raising the minimum wage, equal pay for equal work, making sure that everybody has paid leave and paid sick days, workplace flexibility, affordable childcare. I am a single mom, and I raised my daughter from the time she was about 7 months old by myself. And I had a great support network around me, parents and extended family and friends, without whom it would have been such a struggle. But there are so many women out there who don't have that support network. And those are the people who we put our spotlight on, and what can we do to ensure that they have the support system around them that they need to succeed as a working family unit. And it isn't just for the women. Women are graduating now from college at a higher level than men.
Yes.
We're half the workforce, but yet there's so many fields where we're not adequately represented. And that's not good for the economy, it's not good for business. And so one of our priorities has been ensuring that from the youngest of ages, girls have the opportunity to dream big and then achieve their dreams, and to try to remove the barriers, beginning with gender stereotypes that happen when you're just infants, and the toys that are different, the media that's different, all of the ways in which we put a brick on young girls' aspirations.
Right.
And also influence how boys perceive them. We have to start early to change all that, and then continuing through the workforce so that you don't have women leaving computer science after just 3 years, which is the average length of time women stay in that field. We want to keep everybody on the field, and that's how the United States is going to continue to be globally competitive.
And one of the things you said is so important also, because you said every child, because as we do invest more in girls, we have to make sure our boys are included as well, and men, because our world has changed in so many ways, and the spirit of harmony is just critical in that way.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the President has an initiative called My Brother's Keeper, and it's designed to help boys and young men of color who consistently lag behind in key areas. So whether it's early childhood education, or reading by 3rd grade, or being suspended or expelled from school, involvement in the juvenile and adult criminal system, these are all areas where disproportionately boys and young men of color lag behind. And what we want to do is to ensure that all of our children are doing well.
Yes.
Every child. And that's back to the theme that you heard from the President when he first came on the national world stage in 2004. It's not just my child, it's your child that's important too.
Exactly. That was such an incredible time. What's your guiltiest pleasure about being in the White House? What can you share with us?
My guiltiest pleasure, isn't that something? Sometimes I just wander up to the state floor, the floor that's open to the public for tours and where we have our events, and I go up there when there's no one there, and I just sit in the rooms. There's a green room, a blue room, and a red room. And depending on my mood, I just go and sit for a moment, just because I can.
Wow.
And I just think about the historic significance of those rooms and wonder about, if they could tell stories of what's happened in those rooms, and just kind of soak in and appreciate the history of that incredible building that I have the privilege of working in. And it's just I don't stay long, I just sit there for a minute, and it grounds me, it reminds me of this awesome, awesome opportunity. And it's something that not everybody gets to do.
Not everybody gets to do it. Indeed, you have done so much in so many ways and left such an imprint in that way. We're very excited to be able to have this time with you, and thank you so much for that. When you think about your life, I know the President is planning to stay in Washington, and you're planning to stay?
No, I think I'm going to go back home to Chicago.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes, okay. My mom is there, my daughter, my family, my son-in-law. And so that's really my home. And as much as this experience has been one I could never possibly have imagined when I was a student here in the Bay Area at Stanford, it's time to go home.
You also said that you didn't plan things, and you gave that advice recently because you decided law wasn't moving you.
No, it was not. That's you being polite.
Right. Well, I remember applying for the LSATs, and my stomach kept turning, and I wound up going into journalism instead. But my dad had been an attorney, and he gave up practice because he was somewhat disillusioned. And there are wonderful lawyers out there, so nothing against them, but I know for you that was a pivotal choice. And when people are telling their truths, as you're facing this truth now that it's time to go home, what other advice, if any, do you have for them?
I have so much advice for people, because I think about just my journey and where I made it harder on myself than it needed to be. And I think that part of when I was at that law firm, I was trying to just live up to somebody else's expectations of me. And I used to sit there and go, this must be somebody else's life. This could not be my life, because I am miserable. And I let myself be miserable longer than I should have. And I think it took a good friend to come and say to me, leave. It's okay. You can go on a different path. Just because this is the path that people think is a great path, it's not your path. And I think what I often say to young people is find your own path. And it's good to get advice, but ultimately it's that quiet voice inside of you that you should listen most closely to. And that's what I did when I took this leap of faith to go and work for Harold Washington, first African-American mayor of Chicago. And from my very first day, Janice, I felt like I was where I belonged. And so I think you have to open your eyes and kind of take the blinders off. And opportunity often knocks at inopportune moments. And life is supposed to be an adventure, and it's supposed to be fun and exciting. And you've got to be willing to get outside of that comfort zone to find true happiness.
Wow, that reminds me of my favorite poem, Robert Frost, I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Yes, you have to be willing to take that other road. And just because everyone's going that way, another way of saying the same thing is sometimes the shortest way home is the longest route. And I think I took a very circuitous route and had incredible experiences along the way, but if I'd stayed in that law firm, you would not be interviewing me here today.
Wow. Well, we're very glad
Thank you.
you made that choice. And thank you so much for the time.
It was a pleasure.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you very much. And if you'd like to contact Ms. Jarrett, details are on our screen. And here are some highlights from Ms. Jarrett's talk at the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco.
Good evening and welcome to today's meeting of the Commonwealth Club of California, the place where you're in the know. We are online at commonwealthclub.org, on Facebook, Twitter, and check out our YouTube channel. Since his inauguration back in 2009, she stood by him through the highs and the lows that come with serving in the White House. Together with the president, Ms. Jarrett has worked throughout her time at the White House to mobilize elected officials, business and community leaders, and diverse groups of advocates in efforts to strengthen access to the middle class, boost American business and our economy, and to champion equality and opportunity for all Americans. From ongoing campaigns to end sexual assault, raise the minimum wage, advocate workplace policies to benefit working families, and promote entrepreneurship and early childhood education, Ms. Jarrett has helped the president create a broad coalition of partners to forward a robust agenda. So, Valerie, it is such a pleasure to have you with us. We're very excited to have the White House in the house. So, welcome to the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco.
Thank you. So 25 years ago, this month actually, which seems like yesterday, I received a copy of a resume from a good friend of mine who was the Corporation Counsel for the City of Chicago. And I was Mayor Daley's Deputy Chief of Staff at the time. And across the top of the resume, it said, outstanding young woman, terrific lawyer, has no interest in being in a law firm. And I thought, that's my kind of person, because I didn't enjoy being in a law firm either, and had left my law firm after practicing for 6 years to work for Harold Washington, and I stayed through his successors, and I had just been promoted Deputy Chief of Staff under Mayor Daley. So I called this young woman in for an interview, and what was supposed to be about a 20-minute interview lasted about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half. And at the end of the interview, I was maybe about a quarter of the way through, I realized I was no longer interviewing her, she was interviewing me. And at the end I said, well, you have the job if you want it, which was ridiculous. I didn't have the authority to make her an offer or anything like that, but I was so bowled over by her. And so, wise woman that she was, she said, well, let me think about it. So we were talking a few days later, and I said, well, what do you think? By that point, I had permission to give her the offer. And she said, well, my fiance, Barack Obama, doesn't think it's such a good idea. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding? He doesn't want you to come work with me? Well, how could that be? So she said, well, he has some concerns about Mayor Daley, and he started his life as a community organizer, and he protested against City Hall, and now I would be in the mayor's office, so he kind of wants to have an idea who would be looking out for me, so would you have dinner with us? And so, 25 years ago, this month, we had dinner, and the rest is history.
Wow.
She did come and work with me, by the way.
Wow. That's great. So, you were born and raised in Shiraz, Iran, and you were there for the first 5 years of your life?
Yes, I was.
And then a year later, you moved with your family to London. You're there for a year, and then you end up in Chicago.
Yeah.
So my understanding that you're an only child,
I am.
and so that you and your parents, James and Barbara Bowman, settled in Chicago. So what was it like growing up in the household of the Bowman family?
Well, so you got to wonder why these two African American young adults would decide to go to Shiraz, Iran, right? So my parents are a little crazy, and they would not be upset that I said that. They wear that like a badge of honor. And my father was leaving the military. He was a physician and he served in the military. And he started applying for jobs. You and I had a similar conversation. And he wanted to do research at an academic institution, and he couldn't find a job in the United States where he was going to get the same pay as his white counterparts. And so he was really frustrated, and so he said to my mom, well, then let's just go on an adventure, and maybe when we get back, the United States will be better. And so he went to Shiraz, Iran, and he started this hospital, the Namazi Hospital. He ran the Department of Pathology there. And my mom taught, she's an academic, teaches graduate school in early childhood education, and so she taught in the nursing school there. And it was an incredible experience because at that point in time, Iran had great diplomatic relations with the United States, and the Shah of Iran was very interested in developing best practices in medicine. So he recruited physicians from all over the world to come to Iran. He had a program to just try to set up this really a melting pot of academic excellence in science to make sure that in Iran they were developing the best practices. And so we lived on a hospital compound. I spoke 3 languages. Every child there spoke multiple languages.
What
And it was
languages
such
did you speak?
I spoke Farsi, French, and English, sometimes all in one sentence. Frequently all in one sentence. He had to keep up with me. And so it was fascinating. But from there, he started doing research that caught the eye of a researcher in London. And so then he moved to London to continue this research. And from there, he was recruited to the University of Chicago. And so he often says, you know, sometimes you have to take a circuitous route to find your way back home. And my mom was from Chicago, so it was terrific for them to actually be able to be there. And he was the first African-American tenured in the Division of Biological Sciences at the University of Chicago. Whatever it is, try to put yourself around people who are going to think that you add value because of who you are, not make judgments about you. And everywhere I've worked since leaving that law firm has been that way.
Wow.
And that's our show. I'm Janice Edwards. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for what you do to put your signature on our valley in a major way. Please join us again next time. We look forward to seeing you then.
This show is sponsored by Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Silicon Valley Community Foundation advances innovative philanthropic solutions to challenging problems. As the largest community foundation in the world, we engage donors and corporations from Silicon Valley, across the country, and around the globe to make our region and world better for all. Possibilities start here. Learn more at siliconvalleycf.org.